Welcome back, everybody. We are here at the LCK 2020 Spring. Once again, it's me and my scary picture back with good old Larry Seinfeld. How are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic, Valdez, and your picture is not that scary.
It's nothing compared to Atlas's first picture, that's for sure.
That was actually a horror story, yeah. I will agree with you on that one. Well, today we are kicking things off with a pretty good series. We have, obviously, Gen.G coming in here versus SANDBOX as the heavy favorites. SANDBOX have really been struggling to find their stride. Obviously, a lot of people asking where's Summit, because the team looks very different without him in it, and it's definitely very perplexing. After this, we actually do have T1 versus Griffin, and then we'll round out the night with Afrika versus Dom1.
Yeah, and when you do look at that lineup, the first couple of matches definitely look a bit one-sided. There's a clear favorite and underdog, as, of course, the two teams that are the favorites in the first couple of games, they've already made it into finals, or not finals, playoffs, as they're both sitting at 11-2 right now. Especially T1 on a big streak, just defeating Gen.G just yesterday. And, you know, I've been saying this, it feels like T1 is up there at number 1 right now, especially as they have taken down Gen.G a couple of times in this split. But really, it's anyone's game up at the top. And it's going to be up to SANDBOX and Griffin in these first two matches against Gen.G and T1 respectively to really try to pull off the big upset, because anyone looking at these stats can tell the obvious picture that there is a couple of one-sided matches to start us off.
Yeah. And looking at the remaining standing here, SANDBOX, these are obviously the matches that they have left remaining. Gen.G, Hanwha Life, T1, KT, and Dom1 for them. APK, KT, Griffin, Gen.G, Hanwha Life, DRX, and then Hanwha Life, SANDBOX, Afrika, APK, Gen.G, and Griffin. So these aren't the easiest roads, obviously, for any of these teams, and every single win, and even match win or game win, counts for these teams going forward from this point, as they're all trying to avoid the relegation zone. Personally, I do think that APK looks the best out of them, especially in recent weeks. And yes, APK has some scary matches ahead of them, obviously with KT, Gen.G, and DRX as well, but we'll see. I feel like KT, Griffin, and Hanwha Life are ones that they can definitely pull upsets against.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because you look at the schedules, and actually Hanwha Life's was the easiest out of all three, but just for some reason, when we watch the games that they play, it doesn't seem like they're going to have as good of a chance as some of the other teams there, even SANDBOX, who have shown some signs of life in recent times. But to start off for today, Gen.G up against SANDBOX. Obviously, I think this is SANDBOX's most difficult matchup. I forget, actually, if they still had T1 on the lineup, but definitely not an easy road ahead of them. As it says at the top, 3 teams tied up at 4 and 9. Can SANDBOX make an upset and defeat Gen.G to get out of the relegation zone? If they got a win against Gen.G, that would be an amazing start to trying to avoid that relegation.
I really think that it would probably end up being the upset of the season, just the way that everything is right now, and the fact that SANDBOX's roster is seemingly weaker than it was earlier on in the split. Second one smashed by T1 twice. Gen.G got another scratch. Will Angry Gen.G win all of the remaining series? We'll have, we do have to see. I think that everyone imagines them to do so, and SANDBOX utilizing diverse topside lineups, who will start off the match today, as well as the bottom BDD with 981 kills. BDD is about to be the 12th player, so don't think that we'll see it here tonight, Valdez. 19 kills in a assumed 2-game series, because I don't think anyone watching this assumes that it goes to 3 games. SANDBOX could always pull up a major upset, and we could see the 1,000th kill tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is possible. It really depends on what kind of champions BDD is playing. You know, if he's going to be picking up a lot of the kills tonight. But speaking of his kills, we can see here the different seasons and splits in which he has gained these kills. The most kills he ever got was almost 200, 198 in summer 2017. And since then, it has actually been a bit of an up and down there. We're getting close to kind of middle of the pack, though, for his average for this split. Definitely with 5 series left remaining for Gen.G. VDD does have a lot of time to hit 1,000, at least by the end of the split, you'd have to imagine. And taking a look here at some of the stats, Gen.G obviously up there towards the top. It really does feel like the top of the table is Gen.G and T1. And DRX is like trying to hold on to that third spot. I think they're definitely still third, but I don't know if I would even put them on the same tier as Gen.G and T1. I'm not sure how you feel about that, but it's pretty difficult. I feel like Gen.G and T1 are just by and far the best right now.
Yeah, I think that they are definitely poised to just be the potential finalists, obviously depending on how things go, but I think that DRX it's really hard for me because watching the T1 series, I felt like DRX actually had a dream scenario in one of the games, and then they still managed to just blunder it and throw it away. And then T1 is obviously always really scary when they have a draft edge, and even when they don't, they seemingly just find ways to win anyway. And that's one of the most impressive things. We'll probably talk about it again next. Series lineup for today. Nothing. Okay, well,
Here we go.
Summit is back in the top lane, and the bizarre thing is that they're bringing him back out here for their match against Gen.G, and some people could see this as, well, of course you have to do that. And then some people would probably think, well, why didn't you have him for the easier matchups so that you would have a greater chance to win them?
Well, that's definitely a fair point, but perhaps he was taking a bit of a hiatus. We haven't seen him for a while, and the fact that he's coming back means at least that we'll be seeing him more. And now taking a look here at VDD's stats, he is up towards the top for pretty much everything. I mean, he's got first in 3, he's got the best KDA in the mid lane currently. Obviously some fun stats to look at here. The key player up against Summit, who hasn't played the last, I think, 4 matches, 3 or 4, and he's still got the top POG points on his team.
Yeah. And obviously his point picks, he did play Soraka and Aatrox. Set, obviously, one of the premier picks for him as well. We'll see what champion he does end up picking here today. Top lane meta has diversified a little bit since what we last saw him play. His stats don't really paint a super big story. I mean, obviously he does have really nice stats. Goal difference at 15, plus 406. CS difference at 15. He is 3rd in the league, damage per minute 437. KDA not the cleanest, but Summit is... I know that throughout almost the entire split up until he disappeared, I was saying that I thought he was the best top laner in LCK. And he's really just in another universe on his own team. Very akin to Teddy on Gen.G Green Wings of yesteryears.
Poor guy. Well, Teddy was able to, I suppose, move on to greener pastures. We'll see if Summit can try to bring his team up for while they are together as a team. As we are going into the pick ban here for game number 1, Gen.G on blue has banned Gragas and Aatrox, and Senna and Aphelios going to be banned by SANDBOX.
Yeah. Callista also banned away, and I know the collective is noticing Summit's pose, by the way. I don't know if that is a ode to Akuma. I don't know if you play Street Fighter Valdez, but...
well, I remember many times you destroyed me playing Street Fighter.
Oh, that's right!
Yeah,
all
it
right.
wasn't very fun. I don't think I've beaten you in a fighting game ever.
Well, speaking of fighting games, Set is here for Gen.G as the B1 pick. SANDBOX responding R1, R2, Jarvan Misfortune. And now the ball's back in Gen.G's court. And this is going a little bit fast. Ezreal is going to get locked in here by Gen.G. I don't know if they'll just immediately pair this with a support. I think that they could just take Set. Yeah, okay, there she is. In response to the Jarvan, as the MF is also a pretty stationary AD carry in terms of how she conducts herself in teamfights. SANDBOX might just try to do the Rumble pairing here, not totally sure. Also going to be interested to see what Summit is going to elect to take into the set up in top lane. I really hope that we don't get a matchup like Renekton or something of that nature, as Yuumi was locked in. Now, I don't know if that was intended by SANDBOX right out the bat, or if they want to just take away the ability for Gen.G to have Ezreal Yuumi.
Yeah, could be a bit of both. You know, switching it up as they see the Ezreal, take that away. And it is going to be the bullet chapter, I suppose, in the bottom lane, if we do have any fighting down there. And now with some supports that are still left on the top of the table. Nautilus going to be taken away. Renekton, you mentioned, is going to be denied here by Gen.G.
Well, Nautilus already banned away. Trying to think what else SANDBOX could really even think to ban. The problem is there's so many supports that are just so wide open right now down in bot that even if you keep banning supports, okay, the Volibear is going to end up fighting with us. There are still mage supports that are available. They can obviously pair Ezreal with the Karma down there in bot lane, and things can still get dicey. So everything's wide open there. Gen.G might just allocate yet another ban towards the top side. No, instead actually going to elect to ban away the LeBlanc, and this might mean that we have an R4 Azir pick by SANDBOX.
Yeah, I mean, it's good for Dove. Obviously, he's a big Azir player, but so is BDD. And the fact that he's still available, I think you might just want to scoop that up and kind of get a 2-for-1 in denying it, but also taking it for your team. But instead, they are going to totally forego that and go into the Gnar. So they want to hold a counter pick for mid lane, it seems. They want to know exactly what BDD is going to play, as they already know that the set should be going into the top lane.
And I really like what Gen.G is doing right now. They're going into Taric once SANDBOX locks in that Gnar, and I'm not feeling very good about SANDBOX's team composition. They just picked a Gnar, they picked a Yuumi into the Ezreal, the Sejuani, and the Set. So we've seen time and time again, Gnar doesn't really beat Set. Even if he does outrange him or go even or something like that, Set is so much more valuable in the later stages of the game, and if Set can grab him once, it's just lights out. So Gen.G locking in Azir to round out this team composition. The Shurima wall just so valuable against SANDBOX's, and now SANDBOX going to respond with the last pick of Sylas, and that's going to be in the mid lane. And this matchup can get a little bit rough. If you're really on point with Sylas, obviously it can be pretty even. One mistake, though, and falling behind just means that Azir not regains, but he has total control over the matchup. And everything SANDBOX's team composition here is trying to achieve is just countered, essentially, by Gen.G's. And that's the weirdest thing in the world, because SANDBOX started this game off on red.
Yeah, well, it's not the first time we've seen a draft like that either, if we can be totally frank. And, yeah, I mean, I think, as you mentioned, it's going to be up to Dove getting ahead early. I think Punch is going to have to exude some confidence early on in the game and really influence a couple of the lanes, maybe even mid, if he can get an early gank off there. And it definitely relies on their team getting some advantages early on in order to win this game. And they're going up against one of the best teams in the LCK, so it's not going to be an easy feat for them, no doubt.
Yep. Set, Sejuani, Azir, Ezreal, and Taric versus Gnar, Jarvan the Fourth, Sylas, Misfortune, and Yuumi. So it's hard for me to imagine a world where SANDBOX ever finds any even footing at this point in the game. They don't have Siege. They don't have wave clear. They don't have split push. Well, they have wave clear inside of Misfortune, but outside of that, not too much really going for them, and it's just it's a very disjointed team composition that they walked into face up, and it's so peculiar when we see this in the LCK. Gen.G, the massive draft win, should be able to comfortably get ahead in this game and probably just end up winning.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely what we're expecting, no doubt, out of the teams that have shown up here, and then especially the drafts give us that extra bit of information. As Clid, we've seen him play Sejuani in the LCK 17 times. He's got a 12-5 record so far. Obviously, one of his better champions in terms of win rate, and I suppose he'll be a bit happy that it comes back here. Although the Jarvan, obviously a big Clid pick, was taken away from him by Punch very early on the first rotation of the red side, so that is also in effect. We're seeing here a couple of stats. The last time Kellen came in was 48 days ago, and the last time Summit came in was 36 days ago. Both of them were losses against T1.
Yeah,
so
really good that this is their re-debut against the other top team. As Rascal up here in top lane, just getting a bit of push on the initial wave. Summit eventually comes in, and I can't imagine that too much would end up happening in this lane. Obviously, Summit will try to achieve advantages, but we've seen so often that it's so difficult to do inside of the matchup, and if Set just gets ahead of once, there's usually no recovering for Gnar. He can pretty oftentimes keep going even in terms of CS, but then in the later stages of the game, he just basically gives Set exactly what he wants inside of teamfights. Taking a look at the runes, we do have a Sinner down in bot lane, Gorilla.
Ooh. Not a big fan of Sinners.
Not a big fan of that Scorch.
No.
I'm not a fan of that one.
Yeah, the Scorch, the tiny amount of ticking damage against a champion that can heal. Generally not a good job, or not a good idea. I think the scaling option would have definitely been better in the Gathering Storm, but decided to go against that. Wants to have a little bit more lane presence. As talked about, Punch potentially going mid early. He's looking for this gank now onto BDD. Is BDD going to greed for those back minions is the real question. The answer is no. So smart play out of BDD. He'll skip to the ranged minions, doesn't need to get too close to them, and will back away without dying.
The unfortunate thing here is that both in top lane and in mid lane, Rascal and BDD both had opportunities to cheater recall. And it a little surprising. We see this more often in the LCK, where players will actually just back up into Fog of War and then stay inside of the lane. But we're seeing more and more in Western regions that they will end up doing this on this particular wave, whether it's wave 3 or wave 4. They can craft the wave with a surplus of minions and then just get a free back off. And obviously on Azir you get something like a Dark Seal, or you can get an Amplifying Tome to go with your Corrupting Potion and Set up there in top lane. You can either get a Ruby Crystal, or you can get Boots, or anything that he would really want that helps him out. And then, had he done that, Sejuani was passing topside, so the wave would have been on his side of the map. It would have been a nice way to set up and coordinate a gank by manipulating the lane state relative to the jungler, and that's one of the things that in LCK we don't really see done all that often.
Yeah, just for some reason the Korean players haven't really bought into that strategy yet. We have seen that the Korean region as a whole can be a little bit slow to adapt and change, so perhaps that's just another thing we're going to see in LCK 2020 summer. We might have to wait until that. We're still waiting on teams to do heavy freezing in the mid game. We've seen a little bit in early game, but we are going to see a little bit of a gank here. Speaking of which, Summit is going to flash away, just flash for flash, as Clid also had to burn his to get the knock up. And with the Sejuani up on the top side, Punch will say thank you for the ocean brew.
Well, he's going to pick that up right away. Now, Ocean Dragon initially can be somewhat useful. I mean, all of the dragons are pretty weak early on. It really matters how do they impact later. So typically, you can get Mountain or Infernal early, and it'll have a lot of relevancy later on in the game. Whereas Cloud and Ocean, Cloud sometimes can actually be the best dragon, but not just because it's the best dragon, but it's because you can't get it as a soul. And that's one of the benefits of that. Infernal is going to come up next.
Yeah, so we do have the option of that Cloud Soul coming in. He hasn't graced us with his presence here in the early game, so we might get to see him a little bit later on, but it could be the Mountain, so definitely something to talk about. I think the Cloud Soul isn't going to make too much of a difference for either of these teams, but the Mountain Soul, I feel like, can give just a bit extra resistances to the side of the winning team to really push them over the edge. Regardless of which team that is, I suppose it would favor Gen.G a bit more. I don't know. What do you think about this, Ellis?
Well, the Infernal is, I think, better for Gen.G. Their champions... well, hold on. We got a
bit of a trade here, and we got Clid coming over. He's not level 6, though, as that Emperor's Divide is going to sail wide, and Dove is going to flash away from the Dazzle. It looked like that was out of range, but he did just want to be safe and not give up first blood after forcing that fight over Azir. So he is going to be able to get away, but Flash still available on BDD, so they could look to set up some kind of play, especially once Sejuani hits level 6. That Sylas could be a sitting duck if he gets shuffled and flashed on straight into a Sejuani ultimate. So he's going to have to play real careful, and he's already behind on CS, so not a fun start here for the Sylas who had to get ahead.
No, definitely is not very good. He's down in CS, he's down in XP right now. BDD gonna get another crash on the wave. Meanwhile, we look up at top lane, and this is generally what ends up happening in the Set and our matchup is Set just can't really get moved. We got a big trade.
Yeah, really trying to force this down here. They will burn the cleanse and the flash away from the MF, but no kill once again. Lots of avoiding here from the side of SANDBOX. They've been able to push away Gen.G from all of their opportunities so far.
Summit getting a bit of a trade onto him in top lane, but it's not the end of the world for either of these top laners. Nothing. There's no solo kill potential. Sejuani doesn't have her ultimate, so it would be very difficult for me to believe that she would be able to make her way top lane and then do anything of value. Probably just going to end up doing the Wolf camp or the Gromp camp and then going from there. Although, gonna trade down in bottom, and as I say that, Clid is actually, I think, just pathing up to top lane. Or no, maybe he's looking to sneak the Rift Herald, okay.
Yeah, looks like he is going to take that down, and with Set coming down here and Punch down on the bottom side, should absolutely go the way of Gen.G. We know how the LCK loves their early Rift Heralds, especially right after 8 minutes, so they're not going to waste any time with picking this one up. You see the ping up in the top side. We'll see if Clid actually does want to use that right away, or if he is going to save it, perhaps get a little bit of value out of that better recall. But yeah, nice little early objective for them. They can push that into a couple plates that recently got buffed for extra gold, and try to continue their dominance in the early game.
Yeah, I mean, everything is just going super stable right now, and if you're a Gen.G fan, that's exactly what you do want. Your champions all outscale the opponent. There's no rush to really have everything. This is definitely a lull state, but it's not one that Gen.G is opposed to by any means. It does look like... Oh, okay. Clid is going to go.
Yeah, Clid very aggressive here, going to lay down that red smite, but it's 3-on-2 for now. But wait for the Tara. Can they save the Sejuani with the heals coming in? It looks like they will extend her life, but what does this mean for the rest of SANDBOX? As the kill is going to go the way onto the Sylas. Now Summon in a bit of trouble here, as finally that Tarek ultimate going to come in, but the Ezreal not around, although Root is. So now it's a 4-on-3 as Rascal's just going in there. He's going to trade 1-for-1, which is actually more than Gen.G could have expected. in a 4 versus 3 kind of fight there, as definitely a lot of action goes their way. It ends up trading a couple of kills, but you know, Ezreal able to get some solo XP and gold with the plate down on the bottom side. Let's take a look once again at how this fight actually happened.
So Clid actually jumps onto Punch, even though Rascal doesn't initially have priority. You see Yumi and Misfortune moving up, and there is a world where Clid just dies before these heals even come in, and really, that's a really unfortunate thing for SANDBOX, as a bit repetitive there by me, but Summit trying to get in there, gets the ultimate, I believe, canceled by the Superplex out of Rascal. Kellen running for his life. Haymaker, flash reposition to get the true damage on Punch, ends up being able to kill him even through the exhaust, and then at the end of this all, Gen.G are the ones that walk out with an edge, because Ezreal, he was down there getting solo XP, he got a turret plate, got a lot of minions that Root and Gorilla were not able to get, and so has a very slight advantage right now in the CS department. Looks like Rift Herald going to be summoned, and Ruler is just going to get bigger and bigger. Punch down here again in bot lane as well, and okay, so the leash range does still apply.
Yeah, that it does. They're going to pick up the gold from the plates, and they have a couple more left over. And it's still very early. I mean, it's 11:30 right now. So 2.5 minutes that Ruler can go back down there with his support, try to chip away at that turret. Maybe they even go for a dive. Sejuani's got her ultimate back. As this top lane, yes, Rascal has gotten a bit behind here on CS, but it really is all about waiting for that late game powerful engage that Set does bring in. We'll have to see if Summit can pull off some kind of all-star performance on this champion, as he's being a big bully right now against Rascal in the lane.
Yeah, almost has the Black Cleaver. They're both going Black Cleaver in this game so far. Summit not predicting the movement of Rascal there with the boomerang. Gen.G, they're ahead 1,000 gold. They have the Infernal Dragon. It's Mountain Soul on the menu this game, as obviously both of these teams would really like it. However, the team with the Ezreal Azir, not totally opposed to chewing through Mountain Dragons or Mountain Soul if somehow SANDBOX could end up getting to it. However, on the flip side, if the team with Set, Sejuani, Azir, Ezreal, and Taric gets the Mountain Soul, and SANDBOX has this really wombo combo type of engage, it's going to end up meaning that some of their champions' combos are just outright invalidated by the resistances and by the free shield that can end up being given, and that means that they're sitting ducks. So Gen.G, they do have an absolute win con that isn't just Baron. Mountain Soul can just stop SANDBOX's entire comp dead in its tracks without really them having to do anything. It would just grant them so much freedom.
Yeah, and as you said, even if SANDBOX do pick it up, you're going to have the scaling of the Azir and the Ezreal that can chip away at those shields and those resistances. So definitely a soul that we were talking about before does favor Gen.G here, and already this early game pretty heavily favoring them here. As we talk about this all the time, the team that's looking to scale and, you know, build up their resistances up against Wombo Combo, they're going to love it if it's going relatively even or if they're slightly ahead. It actually ends up being a much bigger gap than just the gold tells the story of, as, oh, baited in here is Summit. He's going to take a couple of turret shots and has to flash away. So this first Mountain Drake, if they wanted to go for any kind of team fight, he's not going to have that flash engage no more. Yeah,
and massive on the Gnar, especially if he tries to teleport in with Mega and his ultimate almost available. Punch jumping in onto Clid, and Dove is going to whiff.
Dove does whiff, but Clid at the same time going over the wall, and wow, no flash here out of Dove. He's just going to Kingslayer and try to get out of this one, but he doesn't even flash there, as he thinks he's safe. Now he's going to try to flash, but Rascal is right behind him, so now with no flash available, he's just going to die, as he saved it for too long and then didn't have it when he needed it after using it late. So pickoff comes in, but no objective just yet, because Gen.G start this off pretty early. Still a minute until that Mountain Dew.
Yep, 1 minute. Summit ended up teleporting down for no reason. just to, I guess, be there in case something else ended up breaking out, but he's going to end up wasting the teleport in doing so, as BDD and Clid now trying to make quick work of this mid-tier 1 turret. Punch coming over, but there's no one to help him out. I don't know what he's trying to do or what he's thinking. As Sun Turret summoned in mid lane, BDD looking to get a recall off. This Mountain Dragon is not one that Gen.G wants to just give over. So we take a look at this team fight. Yuumi ultimate ends up completely whiffing. Dove whiffed as well. Shrima Shuffle not quite on par with it was Clid, as he just barely managed the regular stun. And then Rascal right here misanticipating where Dove would try to go to, as he whiffs the face breaker, ended up bringing him down anyway. But now coming back into live, Gen.G off of a reset, are going to be able to just capture this Mountain Dragon pretty easily. It looks like Tariq and Ezreal are just the ones starting it up. BDD up here in top lane. Not going to have an actual fight go on. And once the Mountain Dragon falls, Valdez, we are in for a bit of a lull state.
Yeah, I was about to say, kick up your feet. You know, maybe grab a glass of sweet tea, and you know, sit back, relax, and watch the macro happen before your eyes, because turrets are going down, the map is being opened up, and these Korean teams don't necessarily like to go for big dives, especially when they're ahead. When they're behind, they feel like they just gotta sit tight for the late game. And we're gonna have a bit of that here, as Root gonna go try to farm there. But you'll notice that Gen.G at least is grouping up as 3 and trying to find little bits of damage onto the turret here. So they're not spending this lull state, you know, just sitting back and not doing anything. You know, LS, with the coronavirus coming in, you could say that right now society as a whole is in a lull state. Everybody's kind of just, you know, sitting back, maybe working from home, but, you know, they're not really doing too much, and the economy is grinding to a halt. So, what have you been up to in this real life lull state?
Valdez, I don't go outside anyway.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
I have blackout sheets on the windows. I don't really notice all that much. Not too much is different, all right?
Life hasn't changed for LS.
Nothing has changed for me. Especially because all of the corona cases that are happening around me, they're happening a couple of blocks away. They're not directly around me, and life is continuing as normal, mostly for everyone in my building. And then obviously, you've been here. There's the supermarket on like basement 6 or something.
Yeah.
And then
you don't have to leave your building.
I never leave my building, actually. So yeah. I just get in the elevator and you know, that's pretty much it.
That's your version of outside, is the elevator. You go in the elevator down, and then you go up the elevator. That's the most exciting part of your day.
I'm always impressed by the graphics when I open up my curtains. You know?
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Outside's
graphics they're pretty good.
Yeah.
High quality for sure.
I don't know. Sometimes they call it real life or something. It's some new game.
It's outside the game. But we do have an engage here. I'm not sure why SANDBOX thought they could take this. I suppose without vision, they decided to go for a risk and hope that Gen.G weren't here, but they absolutely were, as the rotation was already coming up towards the top side. Bit of a desperate engage there from SANDBOX means that they're going to lose a couple more, and it kind of just feels like we're slowly grinding down to the SANDBOX defeat as well.
Well, I mean, we're just waiting for the paint to dry at this point. Gen.G are so far ahead. The 5,000 gold lead doesn't capture it all that well. The thing is that there's no way for SANDBOX's team composition to fight straight up against Gen.G. They have no pick potential. I mean, even in this replay, there's nothing that they could have done. Try as they may, there's no damage, there's no real pick potential. Everyone on Gen.G is too durable, they're too slippery. Even Iceborne Gauntlet on Ruler, which I really like as an itemization, choice. He doesn't need Trinity Force. It's going to make better use of the Mountain Dragons when they end up getting picked up. And all that we're basically waiting for is 1 or 2 more team fights that convert into a Baron. I don't even know if this game is going to go to Mountain Soul because SANDBOX, they don't have a leg to stand on in this game.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And I'm sure they look at the 2 compositions and they kind of know what they've gotten themselves into. They're going up against BDD's Azir, and any Azir is going to become a monster in the late game, especially if he's sitting back, farming with basically 0 pressure. He's 70 CS almost ahead of his lane opponent. Right, they know what they're getting themselves into, and they know that they're definitely very far behind. So I like that they, even though that engage looks silly, I like that they tried for it. I think it was like the best they were going to get. And, you know, they don't see everything. They don't see the map like we do. So they're like, well, if Taric and Ezreal aren't here, maybe we can pick off one guy and maybe we can snowball that into something. But yeah, it's just desperation, as we have touched on many times before here, as the Mountain Drake is going to spawn. Let's see if SANDBOX wants to try to find another engage, as they're looking for it here in the mid lane.
The thing is that they can't fight head first into Gen.G because obviously the Shurima wall, but you'll also end up granting Set a perfect suplex into the heart of your team. So Rascal actually going around for a flank. And this is where Gnar can end up working against his team. He stacks so much bonus HP.
Well, that's going to be a couple of flashes already, and we haven't even gotten to the Cosmic Radiance, as it is going to come down. No deaths just yet, but they are coming, as swept up is the Jarvan. And you do see the Ezreal here. Ruler having a bit of trouble against Sylas. He is a nasty fellow in the mid lane, but sniped by Ruler, just showing off his stuff here in game number 1. That is going to be the clean ace, as nobody on the side of Gen.G will die. Ruler will pick up the triple kill, and Gen.G should sail on to a smooth victory here in game 1.
And, I mean, this is sort of premier SANDBOX, though, historically, right? They pick team compositions that spike earlier, they're supposed to spike in mid-game, and even if they're not ahead, they go recklessly into the fight. I mean, the posturing leading up to that fight was a bit lackluster, right? They had no accountability for where Set would be or how he would approach from. They ended up getting caught. I'm not going to lie and say that there's some magical way that SANDBOX can end up winning this game from even this point. So Rascal comes in with a flank, doesn't actually grab the Gnar, ends up locking up the Sylas, who then eventually gets over the wall. Haymaker comes in, Taric ultimate, and there's just nothing for SANDBOX to do. Their team composition is supposed to go forward, and they're running backwards. So, up above, Dub trying to kill Ruler, not quite able to do it. He flashes over the wall, goes back over with the Arcane Shift, and manages to land Mystic Shot. And it was just a really clean ace. So, that's pretty much all that she wrote. Nexus hasn't quite fallen yet, but I don't think anyone was surprised after we saw this draft in the Champ Select.
No. If the early game had gone a bit differently, I think we could have seen a different game, as we were highlighting, that SANDBOX did absolutely have to get an early lead, use that composition that spikes early to snowball it into more. But because that didn't happen, we find ourselves in a very familiar kind of situation here in the LCK, as BDD did pick up 1 kill, so now he's 18 kills away from 1,000. Or is it 17? What was it? No, I think it was 19 he was away. Right?
What?
19 kills away from 1,000?
Yes. He was at 981. And I'm not... He got 1 this game, Valdez.
Yeah, okay. So 18 was correct. 18 more.
You can do... Are you showing off again? You can do...
I've been practicing my addition.
I can tell. I can really tell that you've been doing that. Wow.
They don't teach us much over in the US of A. So, you know, I have to do a little bit of my own self-study. I hope it's been paying off. As,
I think it has.
Thank you.
as Gen.G are just trying to raise the top tier.
Okay. They're gonna kill Kellen. All right. Cosmic Radiance not going to fall. And now, Yelps gonna flash away. Dove, Root, and Punch are all extremely low. They're just gonna leave Summit by the wayside. Yumi is going to get off the ship. She says, "Get me out of here."
How about a 3v5? All right.
How about a?
Well.
Well, that was. I don't know about that direction.
Oh, Yumi.
Yumi. Yeah, and BDD didn't even get another kill. Wow. Ruler's hogging all the kills.
Maybe he's trying to tell us something. 1-0, 1-0. Maybe it continues on.
What does that mean in binary? Does anyone speak binary?
I think there's actually a minimum amount of numbers needed before it says something.
Maybe it's 4.
I don't think that it's 4. I think it's trying to get at.
Yeah, it's probably like
fine.
12 or 8 or something. But,
so, let's take a look at the replay here. So, SANDBOX commit everyone to this play, 5 members, and then they get repelled 3 versus 5. Summit not able to land his ultimate. Split is just way too tanky, and the damage from Ruler, I mean, he's a one-man army along with his bird, Azir. I was trying to think of a name for A, but I wasn't going to go with Adam. That's too cliche, so.
Yeah.
Ruler now panning back into, yeah, we could say Aaron. Or Aaron. That would be,
Yeah.
much more applicable. As Plid comes over, misses the ultimate. Not
Trying
the
to
end of the
predict a
world.
little bit there. Root just laughed at him. He didn't even flash. It's like, yeah, you're not gonna hit me with that, buddy. Not even close.
This is almost a 12,000 gold lead, Valdez. And yesterday, Atlas and I actually had a couple of back-to-back 10,000 gold leads at the early 20-minute mark.
Yeah.
Which is very uncharacteristic of the literally can't kill region.
Yeah. Except this time all the kills are on one team. And Punch is going to nearly go down Kellen. Here you can see he's super low, but this time the Cosmic Radiance is going to land. And this plane is going to land at SANDBOX Airport, picking up the passengers. The victory will come in as it looks like 21 kills, maybe 22 if they can get in there and kill Summit. We'll see exactly how aggressive they like to get. We know that LCK players like to boost their stats here. So they're going to give it over to the Ezreal. Not giving it to BDD makes me a little bit triggered. But the game number 1 will go the way of Gen.G in extremely one-sided fashion.
And, I mean, nothing much really happened this game, if you recall. There was that one skirmish in front of the Herald. After that, there was one of the dragon fights. And the whole problem is that for the first 13 minutes, all of the laning phases went either even or SANDBOX fell behind due to the nature of the laning phases. So, they picked Gnar into set, A+. They had Silas into an Azir, Sejuani, Ezreal, and set. Phenomenal there. I'm going to have to give that one an S. And then they had MF and Yumi, but the Yumi came in blind, so Ezreal still had multiple options available. They banned away useless things, and nothing happened. So if SANDBOX, if in their mini review before Game 2, they think to themselves, yeah, we lost because we played bad. No, you lost because 13 minutes, nothing happened, and you still couldn't win a team fight or have any chance to win a team fight. There's a very big problem out the gate. And sure, things maybe can go differently. Great. The internet can also go out. But Gen.G are just so much better positioned to win all stages of that game. And then inaction is action for Gen.G because they get a lead even if nothing happens.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. And as I mentioned it before, I mean, it's a movie we've seen 99 times here in the LCK, no doubt. The drafts do dictate a lot of what does end up happening. As you can see, some of the highlights, there was this one fight that looked even. Yeah, I think it was traded like 2 for 2, but Ezreal was just farming up in the bottom side and having a good time getting really far ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, SANDBOX, their comp only had one direction, and that was into Gen.G, but through the Azir, the Taric ultimate, which is so phenomenal at handling engages when his ultimate comes out, it really causes so many problems. Rascal doing really good on the set. I actually gave him the MVP. I felt like he was the only player that had an individual performance that really changed some of the things, obviously with some of his haymakers and face breakers as well, if you recall, in front of the Rip Herald and whatnot. Not that BDD and Clid and Ruler weren't doing things, or Keller's rotation, but did feel like Rascal was the one that was setting a lot of things up that he was able to creatively influence.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, right? Like, the Ezreal went legendary. BDD had a couple of nice moments where he did a lot of damage, but it really did feel like a lot of the fights were started and happened the way they happened because of Rascal's engages and flanks. So I also ended up giving him the player of the game, as it's kind of hard to give player of the games in these kinds of games.
Yeah.
Because it's just so one-sided, and it's kind of like a team effort. You know, it's not really one person that carried their team to victory in it or anything like that. If we had to, which we did, we were told we did have to give a vote so we can put our check marks up there on the graphic. As yeah, I mean, the damage was pretty out of this world from the 2 carries on the side of Gen.G, but that's what happens when you get 12,000 gold ahead at 25 minutes.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, you actually see it in the gold graph. It just sort of balloons around the 15-minute mark or so, or the 14-minute mark. And from that point, SANDBOX, there's no recovery because they needed gold advantages to be even. They never found any. And we'll see what they have in store in game number 2. They were on red side, and they drafted face up a losing team composition.
Yeah, they need to change a lot about game 2. We'll see if they do that as we're going to head into a break right before that game number 2.